Miss Nielsen is Missing by Harry Allard and James Marshall, and creatively read by Miss Tia. The kids in room 207 were misbehaving again. Spitballs stuck to the ceiling, paper planes whizzed through the air. They were the worst behaved class in the whole school. Now, settle down, said Miss Nielsen in a sweet voice. But the class would not settle down. They whispered and giggled. They squirmed and made faces. They were even rude during story time. And they always refused to do their lessons. Something will have to be done, said Miss Nielsen. The next morning, Miss Nielsen did not come to school. Wow, yelled the kids. Now we can really act up. They began to make more spitballs and paper planes. Today, let's be just terrible, they said. Not so fast, hissed the unpleasant voice. A woman with an ugly black dress stood before them. I am your new teacher, Miss Viola Swamp. And she rapped the desk with her ruler. Where's Miss Nielsen? Asked the kids. Never mind that, snapped Miss Swamp. Open those arithmetic books. Miss Nielsen's kids did as they were told. They could see that Miss Swamp was a real witch. She meant business. Right away, she put them to work, and she loaded them down with homework. We'll have no story hour today, said Miss Swamp. Keep your mouth shut, said Miss Swamp. Sit perfectly still, said Miss Swamp. And if you misbehave, you'll be sorry, said Miss Swamp. The kids in room 207 had never worked so hard. Days went by, and there was no sign of Miss Nielsen. The kids missed Miss Nielsen. Maybe we should try to find her, they said. Some of them went to the police. Detective McSmog was assigned to the case. He listened to their story. He scratched his chin. He said. I think Miss Nielsen is missing. Detective McSmog would not be much help. Other kids went to Miss Nielsen's house. The shades were tightly drawn, and no one answered the door. In fact, the only person they did see was the wicked Miss Viola Swamp coming up the street. If she sees us, she'll give us more homework. They got away just in time. Maybe something terrible happened to Miss Nielsen. Maybe she got gobbled up by a shark, said one of the kids. But that didn't seem likely. Maybe Miss Nielsen went to Mars, said another kid. But that didn't seem likely. I know, exclaimed one know-it-all. Maybe Miss Nielsen's car was carried away by a swarm of angry butterflies. But that was the least likely of all. The kids in room 207 became very discouraged. It seemed that Miss Nielsen was never coming back. They would be stuck with Miss Viola Swamp forever. They heard footsteps in the hall. Here comes the witch, they whispered. Hello, children, someone said in a sweet voice. It was Miss Nielsen. Did you miss me? She asked. We certainly did, cried all the kids. Where were you? That's my little secret, said Miss Nielsen. How about a story hour? Oh, yes, cried the kids. Miss Nielsen noticed that during story hour, no one was rude and silly. What brought about this lovely change? She asked. That's our little secret, said the kids. Back home, Miss Nielsen took off her coat and hung it in the closet, right next to an ugly black dress. When it was time for bed, she sang the little song. I'll never tell, she said to herself with a smile. P.S. Detective Mixmog is working on a new case. He is looking for Miss Viola Swamp.